right, Great Out Podcast fans, guess who's back in the building? But not the same building. We've relocated. That's where we've been. It's been 3 months, but here we are. I have missed this so much. So much so that I actually had to record an episode and then delete an episode because I just went on and on and on. But that's neither here nor there. Here's what we need you to do. First things first, if you're here for the first time, thanks for joining us. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, find out when we're doing these things. I promise it'll never be 3 months again. There are extenuating circumstances such as, hey, we happen to relocate from the crispy golden state of California to the beautiful green state of Tennessee, and I am live or recorded from the basement of my new home in Tennessee. We relocated out here about a month ago, but it was quite a story, which we're going to cover going forward. We'll get into it a few episodes, why we moved, what brought us to Tennessee, and some of the things surrounding that. So that's where we're at. I'm Jay the Gray, host of the Great Out Podcast, and if you're here tonight, I hope you are ready to get at least a little grayed out. It's going to be a little awkward because we're like, I'm so excited. I feel a little spastic about being back. But here's where we are. It's 4 days to election time. 4 days. 4 days until 2020's ultimate political showdown. The political death match between Joe Biden and one Donald Trump. It's what we've all been waiting for. In the balance, apparently everything. It's what I'm getting the feeling of. Because what we're being bombarded with on a daily basis is simply this, that if you vote for the other side, you're voting against democracy. You're voting against freedom. You hate kittens and puppies. You are probably an alien. You don't even know what it means to like the American flag, hot dogs, and apple pie. You're horrible. You're probably a China Russian robot. It's gotten ridiculous. I mean, it's literally gotten ridiculous to the point where a few days ago, the CEO of Expensify, which happens to be the expense software that my company uses, sent out an email to everyone that uses their software for their expenses, stating that very thing, that if you don't vote for their preferred candidate, you're voting against democracy. Well, personally, I'm voting to preserve a republic, so that's kind of where I'm at. It's gotten a little bit out of hand, and we are being absolutely beat down every day on TV, every time you go on the interwebs. I mean, you could be just trying to do something meaningless, just trying to escape it all, and there's literally a wet blanket. There's some sort of election ad. Did you register to vote? Did you know you could vote early? Are you sure you can vote early? Would you like to find out if you could vote early? I just want it all to stop. It's just crazy. I'm so glad that Tuesday's coming. Of course, the aftermath of Tuesday, let's just be real. If we thought the Gore-Bush showdown was bad, this could turn into something, just the chaos looming is you can taste it in the air. It's just there. It's, gonna be good. So, all that said, all that's coming up on Tuesday. We're being basically pummeled by both political parties to get out and vote. Of course, the inference is vote the way we tell you. Don't just go vote the way we tell you. Here's what I say. Your friend, Justin Pritchard, Jay the Gray, is going to tell you, vote your conscience, people. Vote your conscience. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to vote. Take part in the process. Get out there. But vote your conscience. If you don't want to vote for Trump and you don't want to vote for Biden, if you want to vote for Biden or you want to vote for Trump, if you feel they're the best candidate, then go vote that way. At the end of the day, I may disagree with you, but here's the thing. We have this beautiful ability to agree and disagree, and it's okay, and we can continue to move forward together. And we're going to get to a little bit, we'll end up with that. But right now, man, it's just everyone's losing their cotton-picking minds all over the internet. The internet is rife with people's inability to cope with the fact that this election is going to happen and their candidate may not win. and their desperation is just, oh, it's confounding. For instance, today, Lil Wayne came out in support of Donald Trump. And like Democratic Twitter, like liberal Twitter, I don't know what you want to call it, like Democrat Twitter is literally out to get this. Like they are saying all, because it's betrayal, it's all this. Like literally he came out and he met with Trump. Probably it sounded like from his tweet there was a group of people that were in there discussing like the platinum program, which like leave it to Trump to come up with something called the platinum program. All right. Hopefully, I mean, I'm all about it. If he's working to help people that have been otherwise disenfranchised or feel like they're not getting their share, or they're not. I don't hate to say their share. I'm not like, oh no socialism. I'm just saying if they're not feeling like their seat at the table is the way it should be, if they're still feeling like theirs, and there are some areas, right, where we got to be willing to step up and make sure that we are constantly tweaking how the equality turns in our country and making sure that freedom is on the plate for every individual that lives in this country. So if the president's willing to step out there and do things, and Lil Wayne's willing to listen and say, yeah, I agree with what he says, I'm going to come out, I'm endorsing Trump, I'm going to support Trump, then that's his right. People that are freaking out, calling it a betrayal, like, grow up. Man, grow up. Not everybody, like, no one has to buy into your groupthink, and that's just like, this is where we are. This is the idea of like other side bad, my side good, and and this is why I continue to remain in this place of political homelessness, the political nomad camp, because we're not being given ideas. In fact, the closer we get to the election, the more they are leaning on the emotion of all of it to try and drive people into into the arms of the candidate they prefer by just continuing to ratchet up everything they think is going to make people's feels get all, oh yeah. And so like if you're a Trump supporter, all you're hearing from the Trump supporters that are going around making the news cycles, all they're talking about is the economy, and how it's doing better, we're creating more jobs, yada, yada, yada. And then if you're a bored Biden supporter, all the Biden talking points to point back to COVID. Which I'm like, and if I had a choice, I'd probably would rather talk about the economy than continue to talk about COVID-19 more, as though it's not the, like, driving narrative of the suckiness that has been 2020. Right? So, but that's what every time the conversation, just like I literally watched a guy today get asked about the economy and drive the conversation back to Trump's handling of COVID-19. So we're not being given information, we're just being given talking points and emotion-stirring crap because that's what they feel like is going to work, because let's be honest, 90% of the time it does. So you and I, we need to go out there, we need to look for the facts, find the facts. So here's a couple facts for you. You know what? I'm going to be honest. Trump's team is kind of right about the economy. The economy was actually booming, was going in a very good direction before the pandemic hit. We are doing pretty well right now, considering they are building jobs back. Like, so there are jobs being created. The GDP is up 33% this month. So like things are actually turning a good corner economically speaking, even though the stock market doesn't reflect that. And honestly, this idea of COVID, I think most Americans, I don't know, maybe not, maybe most Americans that I talk to on a regular basis are kind of tired of hearing about it, because it's just dominated the landscape. And quite frankly, and I may talk about this again after the election, because I mean, who knows, after the election could be a miracle, and oh my gosh, COVID's gone. Poof. I doubt it. I mean, it is really a real virus. I want to make sure that I'm clear on that, so no one's like trying to say, oh, he's a COVID denier. Oh. I'm just saying, there could be a lot of changes between now and after the election, but the reality of COVID and the way we reacted to it, the way we've handled this pandemic collectively could be better. I don't know that anything could be different. And here's my problem with the specific idea of COVID-19, Trump's handling, and the finger pointing that continues to happen, especially from Joe Biden, is that Joe Biden has yet to actually offer any sort of concrete plan or idea as to what he would have done differently. That to me is a problem, right? If your one claim to being a better leader than the leader who's currently the leader, like your leadership is going to be better leadership than this leader's leadership, and that's a lot of leaders, just go with me here. If that's the thing that you're going to get, like, I would assume you would want to articulate very clearly what and when you would have done things differently. I've also been very disappointed in the continued sort of putting out there, oh, I have a plan to save all of these lives from COVID-19 once I'm elected. I'm not a fan of this idea. Like why should we have to wait till someone's elected for things to get better? Like, if you have a plan to save lives, bro, then you should probably put that out there. Like, you should talk to your people because you've been in politics for 47 years and you should have some connections and you should be able to put some stuff together and like put some stuff out there. Right? It's a big deal, right? If it's as big a deal as everyone's saying it is, and it's a big deal, then we should be working to put plans together now, not after one person is elected. That just makes me think, boy, that really reeks of politicizing a thing that's pretty bad. So, but that's just me, here again, stuck in the middle looking for facts. So, all that said, there's so much going on, and I'm hoping to get this episode out today and through the weekend. Here's what we're trying to adjust. We're trying to adjust. And obviously, here's what's great. Moving to Tennessee has afforded me a few different things. One, a time change, which I don't know if that works to my advantage or not, but it afforded me a room way away from everyone in my family except for my son, who lives directly above where my studio office is, because he's right there and he plays video games. And if you have teenagers, you know that video games are a place where teenagers yell. So I have to bribe him or yell at him to get him to stop yelling. And I think yelling to stop the yelling is probably counterproductive, but tackle that later. Anyway, so that said, I can kind of record at different times. I can control my lighting. It's really kind of fun down here. It is a gold lame wall, but we're going to paint. It's, we're getting settled. I've got my real fun, like wood siding in the background. We're having a good time in the basement in Tennessee. That said, I'm able to do a few more things, but aside from just the format of where I'm sitting and what's going on here, obviously the camera angle changed to over here from over there, because it was over there, but now it's over here. So my wife's going to kill me for this. She hates me when I rattle on, and she listens to this and goes, "Get to the point, Pritchard." And I'm like, all right, I'll get to the point. The point is, I'm trying to engage more with social media. So I would highly recommend, if you follow this channel on YouTube, if you listen to the podcast, head over to Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram yet, go get one. Why not? Everyone's got an Instagram. Get an Instagram. Share your pictures. Look at other people's pictures. But more importantly, go follow the Grayed Out Podcast on Instagram. That's where you'll get some updated videos, short stints on what's going on, what's coming up, where we're going with the podcast, and what's new. And you'll also see a lot of cool pictures of Tennessee and other accounts. So it's good stuff, right? All right. Brings us to tonight. What are we talking about tonight? Tonight is about one of my favorite, least favorite things in the world. My favorite, least favorite subject, and that is whataboutism. See, being someone who's moderate, one has to deal with being accused of whataboutism all the time. So when you want to make an argument about, hey, what one side has done versus what this side is doing now, when you want to point out the blatant hypocrisy of one side for what they've done in the past, you often get called out for whataboutism. And I saw this on display this week on Twitter. I'm a follower of Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi is a journalist, used to write for Rolling Stone, maybe still does sometimes write for Rolling Stone. But earlier this year, I mentioned him on another podcast about his appearance on Real Clear Politics with Bill Maher. And they talked about the media kind of bias that's going on. Since that, things have gone kind of downhill as far as liberal street cred for Matt Taibbi. And I think Matt would call himself a classic liberal. Still believes in free speech, still believes in the rights of everybody to agree, disagree, all those things, and has no qualms kind of calling out the BS of one side when they're trying to rampantly point out bad things the other side is doing. Remember, here we are, my side good, other side bad. So, watching this go down, all of the things happening about Hunter Biden and the mysterious laptop, China, all of those things, Ukraine, that are like coming out of the woodwork. Of course, it's right before. This is like more than just an October surprise. This is something huge. But of course, Tucker Carlson and all these different things have happened, and it's just, It's ad nauseum this thing is going to become. But Matt Taibbi was trying to point out that in response to people continuing to use this sort of weird prior court decision that Fox won based on their ability to, as everyone likes to say, convince people that no one really takes Tucker Carlson seriously. Well, that's oversimplifying the argument. What they're really talking about is Tucker Carlson's an opinion journalist, and only some people value his opinion and others do not. Taibbi goes on to point out, in response to all of these arguments being made about Tucker Carlson having Tony Bobulinski on to talk about the Hunter Biden and Biden family issues, dealings with China and Ukraine, and how he was involved in that. So trying to discredit Tucker Carlson by this, Taibbi points out that MSNBC used the same argument on Rachel Maddow's behalf, who is beloved by the liberal left, which is fine, right? She's in their camp, much like Tucker Carlson is in the camp of the right wing. Like, he is a uber conservative mouthpiece, and she is a leftist mouthpiece. Let's just be honest about what this is. And Matt Taibbi is trying to point out, like, this is the same thing going on both sides. And of course, immediately someone's there on Twitter to point out, oh, look at you, Matt, engaging in whataboutism. God, I hate that term. I hate that term because it's cheap. It's just cheap. It's just a cheap way to try to invalidate someone's argument when they're stating facts or prior occurrences. What we would like to refer to that's actually precedent. That's actually an occurrence that looks just like this, but because it happened on this side versus this side, you're okay with it. But now that it's happening on the other side, you want to call foul. Right? That's not whataboutism. That's saying you're being a hypocrite, but no one likes to be called a hypocrite. So they say, oh, that's whataboutism. So me being me, I jumped into the fray because I can't resist a good Twitter argument. And I wanted to get involved to whatever degree. So, and if you have Twitter, you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm out there, Twitter, Jay the Gray on twitter.com. And, you can find me out there on the Twitter sphere. Sometimes I say good things. Sometimes I say ridiculous things. Sometimes I say things I probably shouldn't, but neither here nor there. Actually, it is here or there. I'm going to delete this part out. 17 minutes. There we go. All right. I digress. So, recentering. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, Jay the Gray on Twitter. So that's fine. I get involved in these Twitter arguments. I sometimes enjoy them. Sometimes I say things I probably shouldn't say, but it is what it is. So I engaged and I cracked back at one of the guys who was tweeting at Taibbi about his whataboutism. And I just simply said, to call a fact or previous occurrence whataboutism because it somehow invalidates something you want to doggedly believe, right? It invalidates your ideology or your stance, or points out the incorrectness of your stance, basically is the lowest form of intellectual dishonesty. It's like the lowest form. It's just to say, well, that doesn't matter. You're just using whataboutism, so I dismiss your argument. Even though it's completely valid, completely factual, completely accurate, I'm just going to throw it out because I don't like it because it makes my point really bad. It makes me look bad, makes my side look bad, and I don't like it, makes me uncomfortable. It makes me feel awkward. So I hate this because the reality is political parties and the political theater that we're watching right now, and there's so many things I want to get into tonight that I'm just not going to, quote unquote, like just put in parentheses, Ted Cruz and the other Republicans, like, browbeating the CEOs of Google, Facebook, and Twitter, as though, sure, it makes for great political theater, but nothing's going to happen, let's be honest. We'll get into that later as well. Coming back to this, I just point out, if we can't admit, right, if we can't acknowledge the blatant political hypocrisies of both political parties and both of their fan bases, we're probably beyond help. And let's be honest, we're beyond help if we cannot acknowledge that both political parties are wrought with hypocrisy, right? The Supreme Court confirmation just now. And of course, The Republicans would not acknowledge Merrick Garland when Barack Obama, nominated him when he had almost a year left in office, and then turned around a month before the election and confirmed, right, Amy Coney Barrett, which both were qualified. Both would make great justices. Obviously, both come at it from a different philosophical view, and I get the Republicans have control and it's well within their right, but let's not mince words. It's hypocritical to do. It's a vast hypocrisy. And of course the left's mad about it. They were mad about it then, they were mad about it now. It's a big political game. But it's hypocrisy. If we can't acknowledge those hypocrisies and go, well, that's exactly what it is, then we're beyond help. We're just buying into one side's ideology and saying other side bad, my side good, and that's just not gonna help. And the political parties feed off that. The news cycles feed off that when we just buy into one side, my side good, other side bad, one political ideology bad, my political ideology all good. Both have a lot of flaws. So let's just be honest. Whataboutism has become the biggest scapegoat, easy out. It makes you seem like you're some sort of intellectual just by throwing that at somebody like, oh, you can't, that's whataboutism. It is whataboutism, because what about this time where your people did the exact same thing? And Taibbi's response was brilliant. He said, when did we basically devolve from understanding that an argument's validity should not be based on who's making the argument, but the veracity of the argument itself? Basically, that's kind of what he said. Like when did we move from the value of an argument being the argument itself versus who's making it? Why is this person making the same exact argument verbatim as this person different if the argument's the same? Just because I like this person, the argument works. This person I dislike, the argument's probably a dishonest lie, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is literally driving me insane, and it is all that we are being force-fed all the time. So we need to do better at engaging ourselves in the political process, finding the facts, getting out there, finding out what we're going to vote for, why we're going to vote for that, what are the plans, what are the policy adjustments, what are the things that are actually going to happen that matter. Looking at the facts, making an informed decision, and moving forward, because it's important. I do believe it's important. You should vote. You should vote. I really do believe that. You've been given a great opportunity to participate in that process. You should take advantage of that. You should go vote. I also believe you should vote your conscience. Don't let someone tell you that if you want to vote third party, that you should somehow not do that because your vote for a third party candidate is to vote against their candidate. That's a lie, right? There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions there are millions upon millions of undecided voters that will not vote this year. Your vote for a third party candidate will not tip the scales in the favor of one candidate or another versus the voters that they could not convince to move to their side, because you know why they can't convince those unconvinced voters? They've got no credibility. They've got no facts, no plans. They just want to make everyone feel emotional. They want to make everyone feel bad. So here's the deal. Vote your conscience. I say get out there. Vote the candidate that will speak to your conscience or reflect your conscience. So do that. Because most importantly, and the most important thing that we can acknowledge in all of this, and I'm going to try and wrap up real quick, is that we're still human. At the end of the day, we need to be better humans. We still have neighbors, communities, people we have to engage with that may think differently than we do. If we just assume it's all this group thing, like I'm in a community and so everyone thinks like me, that's just stupid. It's stupid. And it will eventually lead you to degrade someone for their philosophical difference from you. So, in order to be better humans, we need to understand that we are humans. People deserve human dignity. People deserve respect. People deserve regard without consideration for their political leanings. Because at the end of the day, they're still human. And you might be surrounded by a bunch of people that think like you, and that's great. But you are bound to interact with people that do not. And they deserve your respect. They deserve to be given dignity and treated well. So, I'm going to challenge you to do that. I think that's the most important thing that we can discuss tonight. Other things are, hey, I am excited and thrilled to be in my new state of Tennessee. I'm excited to be in this beautiful place where we live. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the weeks coming up. Some final thoughts for this. Get out, vote. We'll get this episode up. We'll get it running again. Go to Instagram. Get an Instagram. Follow me at Great Out Podcast. Great Out Podcast on Instagram for all the updates on this. You can follow me at Jay the Gray as well. You're just going to get pictures of my cat, my dog, my family, and me cooking and places that I go. So either way, follow both. I don't care. Come find me. It's all public. It's great. And then if I say something bad, you can try to dox me and I'll laugh because I'm not that significant. So there's all of that. All that to say, let's go out. Let's be better. Let's treat one another with dignity. Let's move toward a humanity that is, I don't know how to just continuing to lift one another up, even in the midst of our differences. Let's stop buying into the lie that we have to be divided, that we have to be on opposite sides, and the other side is just vehemently evil, when that's just not the truth. So, all that said, I'm Jay the Gray. Thanks for coming back. Welcome back to the Grayed Out Podcast. You've been grayed out.